It's pretty obvious, isn't it? The way God meant for it to be is the way it ought to be. Dads, you need to be present, but you also need to be careful. You don't stir up anger in your children. You avoid being harsh and cruel. See, our text is a safeguard. Parents have authority, but the Lord flips it around and says, whoa, but you're also submissive. There's some things you cannot do. You don't have the right to drive them into anger, to drive them into being bitter toward life. So that protects the children. And that's the way it is in all submissive, authoritative positions. Whenever the Bible gives somebody authority, brother, get ready to get clobbered, because now you will come under all those commandments of servanthood, of serving, getting way down to bless the one who's supposed to be in submission to you. God protects the submissive by helping the authority figures understand they cannot be unkind. There are two things that you need to do if you're not going to stir up anger in your children. Number one, don't stir up anger in your children with anger. Angry parents produce angry children. Children imitate their parents. It's interesting. Many of you who think that your parents were too harsh on you, you feel that your parents disciplined you too much, you're going to be exactly like them unless you do some preemptive thinking. You're going to wake up one day, you're going to have a baby, and you're going to respond and go, where'd that come from? You're going to be just like them. It is hard for children to learn self-control from parents not self-controlled. Parents, don't ever discipline your children when you're mad. Ever. Never. I wish I'd have lived by that. Don't ever discipline your children when you're mad. You can discipline them 15, 20, 30 minutes later when you've calmed down. It is anger that stirs up the anger. It is much better for our children to see us sad rather than mad. A broken heart is the greatest hope that you have to discipline your children. My dad taught this in the most memorable disciplining experience of my life. When I was about 12 years old, some buddies of mine and I, we stole a bunch of sodas from church right after Vacation Bible School one day, took them back in the woods, and drank them. Next day, all the Vacation Bible School people showed up, and they saw the sodas were missing, and one of the saintly old ladies came over to my daddy and said, you know, Pastor Marshall, I'd be afraid to steal from a church. I'd be afraid God would strike me dead. My daddy said, I agree. I was standing right there. I said, I agree. As guilty as sin itself. Time went by, and Daddy didn't find out, but finally one of the guys ratted on the rest of us. And so one day, my daddy, knowing that I was in the heist, came in and told me to sit down on the living room couch. I sat down on the living room couch, and my daddy said to my mother, Doris, you leave, and you take Esther and Charles with you. Well, when that happened, my only protection in the world went out the front door. So there I am, this is me. My daddy, after my mother and my brother and sister left, Daddy locked all the doors in the house. He closed all the shades. And he came walking toward me, and he pulled that belt out like I've told you before. Clatter, 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 clatter. It sounded like a machine gun going. Clatter, 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 clatter. He came walking toward me. I thought, I'm sobbing. I thought, I'm dead. This is it, I'm going to die right here. My dad's going to go to jail for murder. That's it. He's going to kill me right here. He got right beside me, and he took that belt, and he rolled it up. And he laid it on the coffee table. And he leaned over me, and he said, you know, son, it really made me sad that you stole the sodas. But what broke my heart was that you lied to me about it all these weeks. And my dad turned and walked away. It is the only time in my life that I ever remember thinking I would have rather had a spanking. The only time ever. That was the most effective use of discipline I ever saw from my dad, and he used a lot of it. He punished me with his grief rather than his anger. I have never forgotten it. I can still close my eyes. I can see the room. I can see the furniture. I can see how it's laid out. I have never forgotten it. I was made a better person by it, and it has lived with me all these years. Do not stir up anger in your children with anger.